Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking the incredibly dense corporate blueprint of Mondelēz International and, well, unpacking it. We're going to translate all that complex information into a dynamic, easy-to-follow journey. Because honestly, whether you realize it or not, this massive corporate entity almost certainly has a footprint right inside your own kitchen pantry right now. We're going to dive deep into their history, their sheer operational scale, the people behind the scenes, and their future strategies to understand exactly how a multi-billion-dollar snacking giant really works.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with Part 1, Birth of a Snack Empire. Then Part 2, the Global Brand Portfolio. 3 is Scale, Footprint, and Facilities. Part 4 covers Leadership, Culture, and People. And we'll wrap up with Part 5, Strategy, Innovation, and Future. Let's get right into it.
You know, you've probably seen the name Mondelēz printed in tiny text on the back of your favorite candy bar. But have you ever wondered where it actually comes from? It has a pretty fascinating origin story. It was inspired by suggestions from 2 employees during a huge global internal competition. They took the Latin word mundus, which means world, and combined it with delez, which is kind of a playful twist on the word delicious. Put it together, and it perfectly captures their massive ambition right out of the gate, to literally create a delicious world.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Birth of a Snack Empire, from Kraft Foods to a delicious world.
To really understand how this distinct corporate entity came to be, we can trace a precise chronological journey from a totally traditional grocery business into this laser-focused modern snacking powerhouse. Back in January 2010, the U.S. food giant Kraft Foods acquired Cadbury. Now, this was a massive deal that vastly expanded their snacking portfolio. But Kraft quickly realized something. The high-growth snack sector and their older, traditional North American grocery business, they were on totally different trajectories. So they made the massive strategic decision to just split them up. Fast forward to October 2012, and this $30 billion snack division officially spun off to become its very own independent, publicly traded entity, Mondelēz International. This move was a real game changer. It gave them the ultimate flexibility to aggressively pursue a dedicated global snacking strategy.
Moving on to Section 2, the Global Brand Portfolio, Recognizing the Giants. Now that we know their origin, we absolutely have to talk about the powerhouses that fuel this empire. Globally, Mondelēz is literally the #1 player in biscuits and #2 in chocolate. We are talking about iconic global and local brands here. Oreo alone brings in over $4.5 billion in annual retail sales. Then you've got Ritz, LU, Cliff Bar, Tate's Bake Shop, Cadbury Dairy Milk, Milka, and Toblerone. The strategy here is actually pretty straightforward. They rely heavily on what they call power brands. These are the heavy hitters that generate the vast majority of their revenue, turning everyday convenient treats into just a massive, steady stream of cash flow.
And it is definitely no accident that biscuits and chocolate alone make up almost 80% of their global revenue. This company structure is incredibly targeted. If you break down their turnover by category, biscuits represent a whopping 47%, and chocolate sits right there at 32%. The rest, gum, candy, cheese, grocery, and beverages, make up those smaller remaining slices. Basically, they know exactly who their core customers are, and they actively concentrate their investments right into these high-return, totally resilient categories.
Which brings us to Section 3, Scale, Footprint, and Facilities, the Anatomy of a Giant. $38.5 billion. Think about that number for a second. That is their expected net revenue for 2025, which absolutely proves just how wildly lucrative the global snacking market truly is. Just for a little context, back in 2024, they were sitting at around $36 billion. This level of financial turnover puts Mondelēz firmly among the absolute largest snack companies on the entire planet. But, as you can probably guess, to generate that kind of revenue, you need an incredibly vast physical infrastructure.
To hit those numbers, they rely on 147 principal manufacturing and processing facilities. And guys, these are not just your local small bakeries. We are talking about massive, high-tech industrial locations spread across 46 different countries. When you look at the whole picture, they have direct operations in about 80 countries and sell their products to customers in over 150 countries worldwide.
What's super fascinating here is that even though they spun off from a classic American company, nearly 75% of their net revenues are generated entirely outside the United States. They have a massive anchor in Europe, which accounts for almost 39% of their business, contrasted with their North American base at nearly 29%. Plus, if you look at the economic maturity of where they operate, 65% of their business is in developed regions, but they are aggressively expanding a 35% footprint into emerging markets, places like India, China, and parts of Latin America and Africa.
All right, shifting gears to Section 4, Leadership, Culture, and People, the Human Engine.
Because, a machine of this size needs an incredible human workforce to actually run it. 90,000. That is roughly the population of a small city, and they are all dedicated to making and baking the snacks you eat every single day. From the factory floor operators managing those massive ovens, to the supply chain logisticians, all the way to the regional marketers, these 90,000 individuals literally make up the human engine of Mondelēz International. The leadership's mandate for all these people is perfectly captured by their chair and CEO, Dirk van de Put. He noted that their path forward is grounded in long-term sustainable business growth, aimed at accelerating the future of snacking for generations to come. Under his guidance since 2018, the executive team has been completely focused on balancing immediate scale with long-term sustainable resilience. So it's not just about pushing product out the door today, it's about embedding sustainability and strategic growth into the everyday workflow so they stay a market leader for decades. And their human resources department actually enforces this culture really strictly. They cultivate this local-first operating model, which is designed to make regional branches feel totally empowered, rather than just micromanaged by some distant headquarters. But here is the most crucial part. They treat diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, not just as some corporate buzzword, but as a rigid corporate metric. They literally tie these DEI goals directly to the annual incentive plans and the compensation of the CEO and the senior leaders. It's a structural approach completely designed to guarantee continuous growth and accountability right at the very top of the C-suite. And that leads us to our final section, Part 5, Strategy, Innovation, and Future, Vision 2030.
So how does a giant like this guarantee its future growth in a changing world? Well, they use the Vision 2030 strategy, which acts as a super strict three-step blueprint. Step 1 is pure portfolio optimization. They want to generate 90% of their revenue strictly from those resilient core categories we talked about earlier, chocolate and baked snacks. Step 2 is a massive tech play. They're investing over $1 billion to become a digital snack leader. And Step 3 is all about the planet. They're working toward fully validated, science-based targets to achieve net zero carbon emissions across their entire supply chain by the year 2050.
It's really crucial to see how they actively bifurcate their global sales strategy depending on the economic maturity of a region. In developed markets, where, let's face it, traditional grocery store growth might be plateauing a bit, they are aggressively accelerating expansion into growing channels. Think club stores, convenience stores, and discount stores. Meanwhile, in emerging markets, the strategy flips. There, it's all about doubling down on their distribution reach, and that goal is heavily fueled by digitizing their sales force and supply chains so they can efficiently reach way deeper into countries like India and China. Because at the end of the day, Mondelēz isn't just baking cookies anymore. They're actively integrating high-level tech into their core corporate DNA. They recently joined forces with tech and media giants Accenture and Publicis Group to fundamentally advance their AI-powered marketing capabilities. The ultimate goal? To deliver a full 20% of their global revenues strictly through digital channels by 2030. And to fund these ambitious business projects and future M&A, they're making some strategic divestitures. For example, they've been selling off mature gum brands to free up capital for faster-growing tech opportunities and baked snack acquisitions. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought. It is so incredibly easy to just open your pantry, grab a snack, and not give it a second thought. But how does understanding this nearly $40 billion corporate machinery, born from a historic spin-off, powered by 90,000 employees, operating 147 massive facilities, and utilizing cutting-edge AI, how does that change the way you look at your very next bite of an Oreo or a piece of Toblerone? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep staying curious.